There will hopefully be some joint teams, and that is one of the especially exciting things about this event. How many people know how many internet users are there around the world today? How many internet users? Let's start with Asia. How many internet users are in Asia today? How many internet users in Asia? About 1 billion. Yes, estimates are about 1 billion. How about worldwide? Worldwide? 2 billion?
3?
3? Yeah, about 2.5 to 3 billion right now. 2.5 to 3 billion internet users right now. In about 10 to 20 years, that number is going to grow significantly. We're talking 5 billion, 6 billion users. And the question is, how are these users, how are we going to realize the potential of the internet for these users? How are we going to realize the potential of collaboration? How are they going to collaborate to have fun? How are they going to collaborate with their families around the world? And how are they going to collaborate to solve the important problems that we're facing in this world? In preparation for this event, we had a dinner. One of the themes was education, collaboration on education. So we're now seeing it with Coursera, now signing up millions of students. And one teacher now can teach that class. Andrew Ng spoke to us from right here at Stanford about how he himself brought his machine learning class to hundreds of thousands of people, and that helped him to test the idea. And that is actually one of the special prizes we'll have here. But education is only one of the challenges facing us, and we're looking to all of you here in this audience to think about the future of collaboration and start to show us at this event how we will solve some of these problems, how we will get people to collaborate, how we will realize the potential of the internet and realize the potential of collaboration. So I want to thank you all for being here. I want to especially thank TATA Communications. As you know, TATA is our lead sponsor for this event. And it gives me great pleasure to introduce one of the most extraordinary women that you will ever meet. Julie Woods-Moss is the CMO of TATA Communications. She's also the CEO of the Next Gen business at Tata. So this is really about the Silicon Valleys around the world, really the fun stuff. She gets to go travel all these regions, and she's responsible for generating business and for the business that's in those regions. She's been named one of the marketing Power 50, and she's also Women of Enterprise Inspiration have named her a member of the Global Power 50. But what's interesting, when I was talking to her before this, what she wanted to be known for, and some of the interesting things about her, she started her career as an encryptor. So you can ask her about that. And the other thing is that she's a sprinter. She was a sprinter for the UK, and we talked about this, that hackathons are really about marathons, not sprints. But that, those are some of the interesting facts that you may not have known about Julie Woods-Moss. So it gives me great pleasure to introduce the CMO of TATA Communications, Julie Woods-Moss.
Well, thank you, Josh. I have to say, we put this together in 7 weeks, which I believe may be a record. The Bangalore, you guys here, I've spoken to many of you, and many of you regularly come to hackathons. And TATA Communications, we like to do first. We're a challenger brand, and when you're a challenger brand, you have to be first at something. So I understand this is the first dual continent hackathon, and this is really part of the essence of TATA Communications. Josh talked about the 3 billion on the internet, and our chairman, Mr. Ratan Tata, when he bought 7 years ago a small national voice business in India, who would have expected that, less than 7 years later, that business would be literally the silent giant of the internet? So as we talk to our kids and our friends who are not in the industry about the internet, most folks would imagine, we use words like cloud. So I would guess that many people would think the internet's around us like this. The reality is, most of the internet is deep, deep on the ocean floor. And one of the things that TATA did really early in our development was we bought up pretty much all of the submarine cable assets around the world. So today we're the biggest, somebody's alarm's going off. Somebody's got their alarm set for that siesta. We're the biggest provider of submarine cables. So people talk about us as a platform provider to the internet. So 2,000 service providers consume our services daily. 1 in 4 times you use a phone, we're behind there supporting you. Many giants of the internet we sit behind so that we can deliver services. But more importantly, the absolute essence of what we're about is bringing technology to the emerging markets. This is our purpose, our passion, and we really want to play a meaningful role in enabling the next 3-5 billion users, and more exciting, the next 50-100 trillion things that are going to come into the internet. So why the future of collaboration? Why the hackathon? My hypothesis that is in 10 years, half of the Fortune 500 won't exist. Those that will exist will be those that actually embrace new talent models. TATA, we started off as a wholesaler, so we're used to partnering. We're not obsessed about who we work with. We want to work with the best talent around the world. And so for us to be part of a community like this, where we create an environment for people to work together, and in doing so, we can tap into your talent and work with you. We really want some ideas to come from this forum that make a difference. You'll hear about the prizes in a mo, but one prize I feel very, very excited about, and I know cash is always good. Some famous retailers said cash is king, but there is one prize that money can't buy, and that is our Formula One prize. And you say, okay, why would TATA throw in a Formula One prize? Fine, it's a cool sport. 600 million fans around the world. A lot of techie people love, it's the boss of McLaren described Formula One as a technology company that happens to own racing teams. Well, TATA provides all the technology to the sport. So the thousands of sensors that go on the Formula One car, we zip those onto literally sensors that run along the track, and from there, with the Formula One team, we distribute that to 3+ screens around the world, 600 million people, every other weekend for 40 weeks of the year. So this is an amazing technical feat, and one lucky winner with their guests will join us for a weekend in Austin, and you'll get to come behind the scenes and see how we onboard that technology in 3 days and then take it down in 3 hours. And it's a really cool prize. So don't overlook that one. When you look at the cash ones, do remember my Formula One. So enjoy. We're really looking forward to all the creativity, and good luck to all the hackers. Thank you.
Thank you. Before I introduce our next speaker, I wanted to give a shout out to the man who will be beaming in throughout these proceedings, Jack Hittery. Jack Hittery is here with us, courtesy of Beam and Silicon Valley Company.
Jack.
Move around. So, Caitlin wanted you to do a dance. But Jack is one of the visionaries here. You've got good moves, even remotely. Jack's one of the visionaries who helped put this together. Has known Julie a long time, worked with Julie for a long time. So thank you, Jack, for being here. And it's a fun example of collaboration. We'll be interacting. We have 3 of these. We'll have very senior executives from TATA and from other places, other experts who will be beaming in and being here with us and helping explain technology and speak to all of you. It's now my pleasure to introduce our next speaker. Our next speaker, I think, is one of the smartest folks in Silicon Valley. He's also someone who's comes out of the venture world, a little bit an entrepreneur too. James Cham recently became a founding partner of Bloomberg Beta. So this is a new fund set up by Michael Bloomberg to invest in, really, these are earlier stage technologies. And he comes to there from Trinity Ventures and before that, Bessemer Ventures. So a rare person who's been at some of the most prestigious firms in Silicon Valley, and he's come here to share a few thoughts on collaboration. Please welcome James Chan.
So, my name is James Chan, and you guys hear me? So I wanted to share three sort of things about collaboration and sort of what's passing my mind right now. Now, as a venture capitalist, I think there are illusions about venture capitalists, and there's a reality. The reality is that we're following the lead of entrepreneurs, right? And that our primary job, and the fun thing about our job is that we get to go around and meet the smartest people in the valley and in the country and in the world, and see what they're interested in and what they're passionate about. And so this is my little note on sort of like what I'm noticing right now and how people are thinking about collaboration. So the first slide. So this is, does anyone know who this is? No, this is in 1968. This is the first demo of a GUI, of a mouse, of a network computer, and of a telephone. This is Douglas Engelbart, who, next slide, just died about like a week ago, but in 1968 he gave what's called the mother of all demos in San Francisco and Menlo Park. And in that demo, he basically sort of outlined a vision of what collaboration looks like, which, to be honest, we haven't quite met yet. And in that vision, I think a lot of people think about Douglas Engelbart as like the founder of the inventor of the mouse and the inventor of GUI, but the reality is that he often was quite frustrated with what folks have created sort of in his path. And one of the reasons for that is because we've not yet reached that point where collaboration is really about shared minds, right? We're right now, it's sort of interesting and a way to toss information back and forth, but we're still a far way from what he would have called actual augmented humans. So the guy who talks best about this, which is someone should read, which is next slide, is Brett Victor. Brett Victor, who I think is probably one of the best design thinkers out there right now, had this great post about collaboration and Engelbart's actual vision. You should read it. It's blurrydream.com/Engelbart. That's cut off in that little slide there. But you should check it out. I think that actually, ironically, is like the future. That vision in 1968 is actually the future of collaboration. Next slide. So anyone know who this is? Yeah. So Peter Thiel, next slide. It sort of has this great way of thinking about investing. So Peter Thiel was the founder of PayPal and sort of one of the more interesting guys and more interesting investors out there right now. And the way that he put it, and the way that he put it to me is, think about what you believe is true that is not widely known yet. And follow that, because that's actually the only way to be able to innovate. And so here are some observations about what I think is true right now that isn't widely understood. Next slide. So the first thing that's true is I think people tend to think about culture and technology as separate things. The reality, which has been true basically since the printing press, or since fire, since the stone was discovered to be a way to knock down people, is that technology is what actually drives culture. That changes in technology ultimately drive both etiquette and culture and how people behave, and what people think is ethical, what people think is interesting, and what people are willing to do. And so now, if we were to think to ourselves, what are the things that are happening in technology right now, both from a super macro point of view and a super micro point of view, I'd highlight a couple things. So one that's obvious with sort of this audience, but is worth realizing that this is not widely known, is that we are awash, we will be awash in a sea of bandwidth. And there are huge opportunities if you make that assumption. If you think in your head that indeed we are going to live in a world in which everyone is going to be on 4G, 5G, 6G, in a world in which people are going to be on the equivalent of fiber, and you design systems based on that assumption, you will make systems that will make sense like a year from now, 2 years from now, 10 years from now, which is what you're really after, right? I think we're very, very limited right now when you think about sort of what actually makes sense for collaboration. The second thing that is obvious but not widely spoken is that today, everybody is a knowledge worker, right? There was this point when there was like this fantasy that there's this small set of people who will be knowledge workers and manipulators of symbols, and those people will have very high-paying jobs and be able to sit in like sort of white-collar jobs. Now the reality is today, everyone has more compute than like the best stock trader in 1960, right? That the guy who works in a creamery as a frontline cook, right, has a computer in his hands that's more powerful than that stock trader. And I think the implications of that are profound and totally underappreciated and not widely known. And so you start thinking about building systems based on that assumption, and also based on the assumption that you are going after sort of like not the traditional places where collaboration is thrived, which is to say with super high-end guys, with really powerful computers that are getting paid more than $100,000 a year, then you will uncover all sorts of interesting markets. The third thing that I highlight is that we are in a world in which the number of devices per person is greater than one. And what does that mean? That means that you are going to be sitting, and right now you are sitting in an environment in which you've got your desktop, you've got your laptop, you've got your iPad, you've got your Kindle, you've got your Android devices, and your iPhone, right, all sitting around you. So you've in fact got like you're going to have 3 to 10 various different devices with you, and all of them will have both powerful compute and there'll be interesting sensors. And so as a result of that, collaboration is going to be different, and you're going to be living in a world that's multimodal, and multimodal at the same time. And so what does that mean? That means that you should think about not just having ubiquitous computing in which you're able to sort of like view things from different places, but you should also think about yourself as having multiple sensors, right? And so rather than the old, I think a lot of guys right now are transferring mobile and thinking about it just as a smaller version of desktop. That's not true at all, right? So a hack that I saw recently that a friend of mine did, which sort of illustrates that, is on Google Hangouts. And what he would do for his stand-up meeting is he'd register 2 presences for himself. One of them would be sort of him on his laptop, in which you'd be able to see his picture, and the other one would be him on his Android device. And he basically used the Android device as a separate camera, so he captured things on the whiteboard, so that when he was in his Google Hangout with 10 people, one of them was actually literally his hand pointing at different things. And I think like that fundamentally changed the way that his stand-up meetings ended up working. And then the last one that I just noticed as far as technology driving culture is that the cost of storage at a first order of approximation is basically 0. And so you should be designing systems that make that assumption. And what does that actually mean? That means that there are a whole set of things that you should be saving and storing and continuing to work with. I think sort of Andrew Ng at Coursera would talk about the fact that they are keeping these massive logs, not just of every click that's made, but every keystroke, the time between different keystrokes, the direction that a mouse is, like where a mouse is actually pointing. And they're using that information. Well, actually, they're not using that information right now. They haven't figured out what they're going to do with it. But they have the ability to think about it, and they're planning to use it sometime. Next slide. The second broad thing that I note that is like widely understood, but not actually diffused among like everyone, is that like this combination of behavioral psychologists, behavioral economists, and like these neurobehavior guys, who all, by the way, hate each other, all those guys like have come up with a framework for understanding the world that is essentially better and works better than sort of how people traditionally think about human behavior and how people think about user interfaces. And so here I just have 4 guys that we're thinking about. I don't know if anyone's actually sort of followed Danny Kahneman. Anyone heard of him? Okay, so you know, it's worth thinking about. He won the Nobel Prize recently in economics, and one of his key insights is that we actually think in 2 different ways. We think fast, which is through intuition, of what he calls System 1, and we think slowly through reasoning, which is what's called System 2. And the ability to understand what state your user is in, and also the ability to sort of basically switch them between those 2 states, is incredibly powerful. Incredibly powerful what we're thinking about. The second guy that I highlight is the Stanford professor named Cliff Nass, who has this spectacular book called The Man Who Lied to His Laptop, which if you thought about is a slightly ridiculous prospect, right? You know, sort of lying to your laptop. What does that even mean? And I think what it means is that you as a designer of a collaboration system should think about that collaboration system as having a personality, and from the point of your users, having some sort of personhood. And that means that if you think about it that way, rather than thinking about it as a pure user interface in a system, then you'll be able to get people to move along in ways that are different, you'll be able to get them to do different things, and you'll be surprised by how engaged they'll be. The third guy to highlight, who's also another Stanford professor, his name is BJ Fogg. You should look him up right now. He's probably one of the more practical guys to read about, as far as thinking about how people actually use systems. And so what he emphasizes is what are called hot triggers. Hot triggers is this basic idea, which is that when we build a system, we almost never think about the point before people actually use it. And so the result of that, we build these wonderful systems that nobody uses. And that's, as a venture capitalist, that's a bad thing. And so he has an excellent framework for thinking about how to deconstruct and understand people the point before they actually use your system, and how to identify the right sets of users for you and the way to test that. So that's BJ Fogg. And the last is a I guess now a Duke professor named Dan Ariely, who writes this book called Predictably Irrational, which is entirely worth reading, in part because it highlights the fact that now, actually, let me go through a quick poll. How many folks here are developers? And then how many folks are like designers? Product people? Okay, great. And so, there's so I was a software designer and developer for many, many years, and I hate to say this, but not only are people in general irrational, I'm irrational, and we make decisions in ways that just don't make sense. And so Dan Ariely, who's entirely worth reading, will highlight a whole series of hacks about how to think about people and human nature. So those are the behavioralists who I think are taking over the world, and understanding them and understanding the way that they think will give you an advantage over most other people. Next slide. And so now my third then is a series of suggestions about what I think are interesting opportunities out there. Next slide. It's probably not Minority Report. I think that I love the movie. I love Tom Cruise. Probably building something literally like that is a wrong thing. So let me give you some ideas about what I think are interesting opportunities now. So next slide. I think there are opportunities in big and small collaboration. And so let me describe what big collaboration is. Big collaboration is highly immersive, huge screens, high bandwidth, and in very, very focused activities. I was talking to a friend of mine recently, and he observed that the moment that he moved his laptop and plugged it into his, 50-inch TV, and started working on top of it, and started doing Skype calls on top of it, it fundamentally changed the way that he worked. And the crazy thing about it is, that 50-inch TV was $600, right? And I think that in this world in which we will have multiple screens and be able to think about a high bandwidth, multiple screen world, you will find very, very different use cases for what I call big collaboration. At the same time, I think there are huge opportunities for what I call small collaboration. And small collaboration is, actually best illustrated by a story, okay, I'll tell the story. So I have a friend who unfortunately got divorced. So, really, really good guy. And he, when he was 20, he was sort of a nerd and got married, and when he was, and not, girls weren't that interested in him, but when he was 40, he was a very, very wealthy man, but still a nerd. But then suddenly people were interested in him. And so he ended up dating a lot of people. And I have enough trouble managing life with my kids and my wife. I said to him, how can you go on, more than one person at a time? And he said, James, you don't understand. We live in a world now of SMS. And I said, or messaging in general. I said, what does that mean? He said, look, I can maintain relationships with 5 different people, basically running on top of SMS. I said, how's that even possible? His point was, well, in the case of having, I can send short sentences to these different people, over the course of the day, and they are in fact highly generic messages, but because I'm in general an interesting guy, and people on the other side end up projecting what I mean, there's this huge opportunity for me to basically manage these multiple relationships. And that's because in the case that you have low bandwidth communication, that communication gets decoded on the other side. And that's not just true in the case of a 25-year-old co-ed, but that's true about all of us, right? That in fact, in some ways, that 140 character tweet in some ways can be much more meaningful to all of us than like that 2-hour movie. And that's because we are in our head decoding and understanding it. And I think that insight has lots of applications for all sorts of different sorts of collaboration, in which you are constantly communicating and constantly pinging people. And that's not just for personal relationships, but that's also for work relationships. Next slide. Okay, so this is just quick. So save everything. Let me just say that again. Save everything. Save everything. Like, you know, the cost, which seems like a lot when you're first starting, is actually not that much. The sort of and if you save everything, the sort of things you'll be able to do as far as both audit trails and analytics and understanding what you're going to build, understanding your consumer, is just fundamentally different. And in the world in which you save everything and your consumer expects you to save everything, then search and summarization suddenly becomes really, really critical. And so that's just as far as like future features and ways to think about it. But of course, day one is not that important, you know. So, but you do need to think about saving everything and creating a product architecture that supports that and which makes sense. And then last one, next slide. So I do think that the right way to think about collaboration is by being incredibly specific, right? You know, sort of Douglas Engelbart was able to create this generalized system for collaboration because he was the first guy to do it, and he did it in 1968, right? And so at that point, it's stunning and shocking. Nowadays, you need to create systems that are highly, highly specific in the hope that they'll become generalized and become big. And so what is that? What does that actually mean, and what does that look like? That means that you should be looking for vertical workflows. If you're doing collaboration for business purposes, right? That you should be thinking in terms of, well, in this specific industry, what are ways that I can add value? What are ways that I can make this process easier to understand? And what are ways that I can get people to work together more closely? The other way to think about it is, if you wanted to do something that wasn't industry vertical specific, what is a very specific, well-defined use case that I can tackle, right? And so now that's not just true in the business world, it's also true in generalized consumer world. There's a reason why something like Snapchat grew so quickly, right? It was because they chose a very, very specific use case. They chose something very, very small, and they went after it with all they had. And the moment that they're able to be successful there, then they can go on anywhere they want. And so, next slide. So those are my 3 thoughts on collaboration. I hope this is helpful for you guys. I'm James at BloombergBeta.com. You can tweet me at JamesChan. Glad to chat with folks. I'm excited to see what you're doing. Again, I say with the caveat that these are just my observations as far as what's happening in the world. You guys are the ones actually creating it. So, good luck.
Awesome. Thank you, James. That was really thoughtful. Please give another round of applause for James. Excellent. Well, rare for these kinds of events, we are actually on time. In fact, slightly ahead of schedule. We're going to try to keep to that because we have a number of things we want to accomplish tonight. So what I'm going to do right now is just go through the schedule first, and then we'll find out what's going to happen right after this. In terms of the schedule for this evening, what we're going to happen next is Carl Perkins from TATA is going to come up. He's going to talk about WebRTC, a little bit of high level for those who don't know it, talk about some of the developer toolkits that are available here for you today. Then we're going to have an opportunity, if you already have a team, you already formed a team before or in the parking lot, that's great. If you have an idea, you're looking for other team members, and you're looking to recruit, we're going to give the opportunity for everybody to come up and do about 2 minutes. Really one thing about it is 1 to 2 minutes actually, to come up and say, hey, here's my idea, looking for team members, please join me. At that time, we're going to attempt something that really speaks to this collaboration we're trying to achieve here tonight. It's going to be a little difficult, but we're going to see if it works. We're going to then bring up the Bangalore teams who are just now, because it's about 12 and a half hours ahead, so they're just, some of them, I saw that one guy there all night, but some of the folks are coming back in. We're going to have opportunities for some of those teams who want a U.S. collaborator to join with their team. We're going to give a chance for some of those teams to say, hey, because they started Friday morning our time. Julie was here at 7 a.m., kicking that off. I got to sleep in. So we're going to give an opportunity for those teams to say, hey, here's what I'm doing, and then we'll talk about, and when Carl talks about some of the collaboration tools we'll be using as part of the event, we'll give occasions to do that. After we do that, then it'll be time, obviously, to start hacking. The one other date to really keep in mind, which is 12 noon tomorrow. 12 noon tomorrow, you have to have your team registered. So if you want to be presenting for the judging, the U.S. judging will start at 6 p.m. on Saturday. You have to be registered online at 12 noon. If you're confused at all about how to do that, find me, find someone from Nest GSV. We'll make sure that you understand what to do. You're welcome to stay. With this guy, we're going to have someone here. They can stay all night if they want. Cave on? Sure. Cave on himself. Don't break anything. Don't. The robots are armed, so yes, the beams. The beams. Thank you, Julie. Thank you. No, but you're welcome to stay. You're also welcome, if you want to go back, shower, come back. That's great too. Our showers here too. Okay. And we'll be having, meals throughout the time. 6 p.m. is when we're scheduled to start U.S. judging. It's going to go a little bit later than if you've been events here or the hackathons. We might go a little bit later than prizes because after the U.S. teams present and are judged, we're going to give an opportunity, if there are any joint India-U.S. teams, to then present. And we're going to try to find a way for them to present jointly, but they'll have a chance to present as well as we may have some of the India finalists present. So there'll be an initial round of judging, some of what I just said, and then additional judging, and then we'll wrap up. So it may go a little later. Hopefully you guys can all plan on staying. I think we said till 10 on the Eventbrite, and we'll probably go right up to that. Unless there are any burning questions on any of that, any burning questions? One thing I will talk about, I'll talk about, I'll let Carl go, and then I will come up and I'll run through the prizes and quickly through the judging criteria, which we try to be pretty transparent. I know I talked to a number of you earlier who appreciate that. So you've probably seen that, but I'll run through that after, in a minute here, after Carl goes. So, just make sure I haven't left anything out. I don't believe so. So in this time I'd like to bring up Carl. Carl's the chief architect. He's also the head of UC&C at TATA Communications. Please welcome Carl Perkins.
Hello. Hi there. I'm Carl Perkins, chief architect for UC&C at TATA Communications. Also known sometimes as Next Slide. As well. I'm quite good at that.
You are excellent. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So, obviously, the reason why I'm here and the reason why you're here as well is that we want to have a very interesting and collaborative hack, and we want you to get off to the best start you possibly can whilst you're doing as well. I just wanted to mention one thing, just to show the kind of credentials that we have in terms of our interest in collaboration, the kind of applications that we're and services that we try to bring to market as well. Maybe some of you have seen that we have launched a new platform this week called Jamvi. It's a completely collaborative platform which allows for reservation as conferencing, for video and for audio as well. It's the sort of thing where you just send out a free client to people who need to meet in that meeting and that they can take part. That was aimed at. Okay, so shall we go to the next slide? So what I want to do also is introduce a couple of our co-sponsors that might really help you in some of the work that we're going to do over the next few hours as well. There are other co-sponsors, but I'm just pulling out two, particularly that I'm interested in, and I hope you're interested in as well. One of them is Media Network Services. They're actually helping to enable the call that we're in right now with Bangalore. The other one is VLine as well. So Media Network Services, what they do, they provide a global network which enables the routing, the efficient routing of real-time media around the world. They have two services, so some of you might go to their website and may get a little bit confused by that. So I just want to pull on that a little bit. One of them is video roaming, which is the efficient media routing. And that's very interesting, of course, particularly where you're trying to create collaboration applications using rich media, which of course is spanning continents. The other one is their MCU1 service, which is a software-based MCU in the cloud. We wanted to try and get that here for you, because that would enable perhaps some very interesting applications that really wasn't available in time. So what does that mean? Well, the most important bit about that video roaming platform that's going to be of good interest to you is the turn service. If any of you have done a little bit of work before you've come here, or you've done hacking with WebRTC before, you know that turn is absolutely fundamental to making it work. So, of course, you could all go off or create your own turn services if you wanted to, nothing wrong with that at all. Of course, what you could also do is use the turn service for free from Media Network Services and save yourself an hour or two. So I think that's reasonably a good offer to have a look at that. There's some information in the pack about that. I'll show you on the next slide, but not yet. But what that also means, it's not just a turn service, it's also the ability to route that media efficiently across the internet. So that could be to another continent. So in other words, rather than just reflecting the media from your client over to another client, etc., on the other side of the planet, that means picking that media up, getting it off the internet, routing it across the network, and then depositing it out of a POP, which is closest to the destination for that call. It might be interesting. So there's a little bit of, you won't have to create a turn server. The other part is, you also can see a little bit of more efficient middle mile routing of media as well. So what you'll find in the pack, which is linked into Google Docs, you'll find this one pager from them, which details how you get access to their turn service. So obviously the server name, which is GeoDNS, so it will resolve the different things around the planet, of course, and then the authentication username and password. That's all you need, of course, to get it working. Do you think that's reasonable? Something good to do for you to save you a bit of time? I hope so. Next slide. So a little bit about the service which they couldn't get, but I do want to talk about it a little bit. Their software-based MCU in the cloud, MCU1, that, of course, is a widget you can use embedded to JavaScript. It will be coming out around about October time, so it's not available now, but maybe at some point in the future you'd like to look at something like that, you know where to go and have a look. Next slide. And I'd also like to pull out a little bit on VLine. They're here today. They've also a co-sponsor. And of course there's quite a lot of interesting corner cases with WebRTC in terms of making calling work. Of course, all of us, if you've done any time with WebRTC, know that getting a point-to-point call working between two browsers is pretty easy, okay? Not exactly rocket science. But what happens if one of the clients, one of the browsers, somebody hits the refresh button? What happens then? How do you reconnect the session, for example? What happens, for example, if both clients call each other at the same time? How does that work? So VLine has put together a great set of widgets for you to be able to use to simplify and streamline the development of the applications that you may write using WebRTC. So in other words, rather than have to deal with all those corner cases, all those difficult situations, you can use their widget set. They're here today, and they'll be making their way around, so find them out if you're interested. You can use their widget set to quickly get your application working, coping with a lot of the corner cases as well, and concentrate on what your application is going to do rather than how it does it. So I hope that's helpful as well. There are, of course, other co-sponsors as well. So this is the last slide. So no more PowerPoint for me, don't worry. So what are the sort of things that I'm thinking about that you could produce that would be very interesting collaboration applications? Of course. So the most obvious thing you could do is create an application with point-to-point video call or audio calling. That's the most obvious thing to do. Put something on the right-hand side, wow, integrate it into some kind of application. And of course, a lot of you will do that. There's nothing wrong with that. But what about other things you could create as well? Well, how about thinking in that space? How about thinking that perhaps things are going to start a different way? Maybe we're going to start from an audio call and then escalate to video. Maybe we're going to start from a fixed device and then take a call over to a mobile roaming device, perhaps. Maybe that'd be interesting too. So rather than just thinking about fixed point-to-point, think about something perhaps a little bit more dynamic. What about other ways of getting into the call? Is it all about going to a web page and clicking on something and magically getting in? Perhaps there are other ways of getting that application to start. Perhaps embedding something in email. Perhaps it's a link. Perhaps it's something that works with IM. Other people's IM. Other people's collaboration tools. Those are interesting dynamics that I'd be looking for. What about other applications in the cloud? What about applications which are related to retail, business to business? What about integrations into social media as well? So don't just think one-dimensionally is what I'm asking. I'm asking, perhaps it'd be very interesting to think about applications in all of those different spaces as well. What about other types of collaboration? Because what I've just done, I've talked about all real-time collaborations. What about offline collaboration as well? Because a lot of what we do, perhaps also this video call that we're in right now, is dealing with space. Being able to talk to people divided by a distance. What about people who are divided by time as well? What about people that are working on projects which are offline? That's an obvious thing, of course. But what other types of collaboration do we have which deal with offline collaboration? What about business processes? What about the simple thing of sending somebody a quote and then replying back with a purchase order? And then you sending them a sales order? And all of those things being signed off. And perhaps there's a query. And perhaps that needs to be escalated to a rich media call to resolve that query. That would be interesting as well. Those are the sort of things that I think you should be thinking about as well. Now, another one here is WebRTC has a data channel, of course. A very rich data channel that you can use for anything you like. It doesn't have to be video, it doesn't have to be audio. So it could be location-based information that's shared down that data channel. For example, it could be an estate agent communicating with a client saying, these are all the properties that you're looking for in this area. This is the one that's got 2 beds, this is the one that's got a garden, this is the one that's got a driveway. You know, being able to communicate collaboratively with that client so that they can view the houses before they actually go and view the houses. Wouldn't that be interesting? But there are other sorts of data you could put into that data channel. Location is one, there could be other things as well. So what I've tried to do is try to highlight that what I don't want to see is a whole load of point-to-point video calling applications. It would be great if we saw some rich ideas which deal with business to business, business to consumer, deal with real-time and offline collaboration as well at the same time. Thanks.
Thank you, Carl. That was great. Very, very helpful. This time, before I continue, I wanted to thank all the sponsors. We had a great list of folks presenting, that were promoting this event. Some of them have already been mentioned. MNS. You've also, I think many of you, some of you may have found out about this event through Ty. Prashant Shah, who is a board member of Ty, who runs the Ty Angel Group. He's a great person to know. He's going to be a judge. And Ty itself is a co-sponsor of this event. Twilio is a co-sponsor. Nokia and Intel both provide great support for this event. V-Line, we mentioned TATA Consulting Services, which is a separate group, another very large group that is part of TATA, also is a co-sponsor and very helpful. NestGSV, of course, Tech Meetups, iAccelerator, and then of course TATA is our main sponsor, so I want to thank those folks. Before I let people up, kind of quickly about prizes. I mentioned 6 p.m. That's when judging starts here. I think you've seen the prizes. I'm going to read off to you quickly as well. We mentioned the F1 package, which I really wish I could win. I'm really excited about it. I think that's fantastic. I think that's super, super cool. There's going to be audience favorite in both here and in Bangalore, and that's going to be an applause meter, so please stick around, have your team members stick around, invite your friends, but that is how we're going to determine those audience favorite prizes. We mentioned a best use, if someone does use this for education, we have a $3,000 prize specifically around best use for education collaboration. Something called best business model. So maybe you come up with an idea, you haven't had a chance to put it all together, it's complicated, but we think it has great market potential, something that we really think could work, even though it might be hard to demonstrate. You could be eligible for the best business model prize. We have a best US-India collaboration prize, which is a large one, that's an 8K prize. We'll be talking again in a moment about opportunities to collaborate. And then a third prize, second prize, first prize, 5K, third, second prize, 10K, first prize, 15K. The 15K prize also includes a 3-month accelerator program. That's a $25,000 value, and that could be either here for a US team who wins, it would be here at SGSV. Also, if it's in India, it'll be courtesy of our partner there, the iAccelerator in India. And then there are a couple of Bangalore-specific prizes as well. The judgment criteria, or something, again, we try to be transparent about. 30% usefulness of the solution demonstrated, 30% strength of the business model, and monetization potential of the solution demonstrated. 20% creative usage of open APIs such as WRTC, of WebRTC, excuse me, and technology stack, and 20% on market impact. Feel free to come up to me if you want clarification on any of that. I would be happy to do so. So at this time, I'm going to invite anyone. How many people would like to come up and recruit for a team? I see one hand, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, you can come up even if you didn't raise your hand just now. I just wanted to get sort of a general sense. 6, 7. Okay, so it looks like we'll be sort of